Hello everyone. So this is the summary of the poem Crow Testament by Sherman Alexie. So this is the introduction. This poem is a popular poem that reflects upon the painful experiences of Native Americans. Here poet uses a crow as a symbol to tell the story. The crow witnesses everything that happens to Native Americans, both good and bad. The poem talks about how Native Americans have faced difficult times throughout the history. It tells about how their land was taken away and the hardships they went through. But it also shows how they emerge strong and keep going despite all the tough situations they have experienced. Here the poet uses the crow to talk about history and the painful memories that has been passed down from the past. He also talks about forgiveness, trying to let go of the hurt caused by others. So, this is the text of the poem. Cain lifts Crow, that heavy black bird, and strikes down Abel. Damn, says Crow, I guess this is just the beginning. The white man, disguised as a falcon, swoops in and yet again steals a salmon from Crow's talons. Damn, says Crow, if I could swim, I would have fled this country years ago. So, this poem talks about the struggles and the hardships faced by Native Americans by European settlers. This poem opens with a biblical reference to the story of two brothers, Cain and Abel, from Genesis, where Cain kills Abel out of jealousy and anger because God accepted Abel's offering and not from Cain. So, he killed Abel with the help of a crow. Crow becomes the witness to the beginning of suffering and violence in human history. So, here Crow symbolizes the ongoing pain and anguish faced by Native Americans, and here Crow represents Native Americans. In the next lines, poet says that white settlers came disguised as a falcon and stole all the lands, possessions, and resources of Native Americans and destroyed their culture and identity. The next lines show the disappointment and the helplessness of Native Americans who could not find a escape from their brutal reality. Come to the next lines. The crow god, as depicted in all of the reliable crow Bibles, looks exactly like a crow. Damn, says Crow, this makes it so much easier to worship myself. Among the ashes of Jericho, Crow sacrifices a firstborn son. Damn, says Crow, a million nests are soaked with blood. So, in these lines, poet criticizes institutionalized religion, that how white settlers used religion to control and manipulate Native Americans. Through these lines, the poet here criticizes Christianity, playing an important role in colonizing Native Americans. In the next lines, the poet makes a reference to the Battle of Jericho from the Old Testament, where Israelites killed all the inhabitants of Canaan after conquering their land. So, through this reference, poet highlights the brutality and the violence inflicted upon Native Americans by European settlers, which resulted in the destruction of their culture, identity, and even claimed their lives. Come to the next lines. When crows fight crows, the sky fills with beaks and talons. Damn, says Crow, it's raining feathers. Crow flies around the reservation and collects empty beer bottles, but they are so heavy he can only carry one at a time. So one by one he returns them but gets only 5 cents a bottle. Damn, says Crow, redemption is not easy. So in these lines, poet highlights the conflict between Native Americans, that how colonization seriously impacted their lives and led to the internal conflict among them. So this resulted in the loss of unity among them and also led to the destruction of their culture and identity. Sometimes these fights became very brutal and violent. In the next lines, poet portrays the life and experiences of Native Americans on the reservation. So their lives are very difficult and challenging, and they face tough situations on day-to-day basis. They collect empty beer bottles and sell them. So this shows their poverty and addiction to alcohol. They have become so weak that they find it hard to lift empty beer bottles. So these lines reflect upon the economic struggles faced by Native Americans. So they get very little in return of their labor. That shows how they have limited opportunities to work and they are marginalized by the colonizers. So when Crow says that redemption is not easy, it makes a reference to the frustration and desperation of Native Americans in dealing with the trauma that they are going through. They know that getting over this trauma is a difficult and ongoing process that requires collective struggle and efforts. Come to the last lines. Crow rides a pale horse into a crowded Povo, but none of the Indian panic. Damn, says Crow. I guess they already live near the end of the world. So in the last lines, poet talks about Crow riding a pale horse and reaches to a big gathering. So here pale horse symbolizes death. But the people don't panic. That shows that such kinds of experiences have become so normal in their lives that it appears very ordinary experiences to them. So, these final lines reflect the ongoing pain and trauma in the lives of Native American people, that they can't differentiate between a traumatic situation and an ordinary one. And here the poem ends.